Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to another whole year of Tired GP madness. And to kick
Woo!
off 2025, Ammar and I are going to get straight into some debating. I
Oh,
hope you guys are ready. We're going to go through who is the greatest four-time only Formula One world champion. Here we go. Ammar, how are you? Happy New Year, mate.
Happy New Year. 2025 is on board. It's going to be an exciting year. We're going to
It
do a little bit
is
of look back, no?
It is going to be an exciting year, but just as a palate cleanser, so you can wash off all of 2024 and look forward to the next season, we are going to do some retrospective stuff.
Love it.
Um, and to start with, we thought we'd have a little look at three drivers that have won four championships, no more, no less, four only. And that those three drivers, as far as I can tell, are Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen, and Alain Prost.
Nice.
And we're going to rank them for you. Um, Amara, just before we get into this, any initial
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah,
Where's your head going?
I'm glad you asked that because I do want to get it on record that we are doing this, but this is highly unfair, okay? That we're comparing drivers from different, essentially generations, different generation of cars. But I do want to go get it on the front end and say that us picking one over the other is not taking away from any of the four-time champs. They are outstanding in their own rights, and it's not about being I guess nitpicky in that regard. It's just about ranking one above the other. That's what we're doing. The other thing I wanted to note is that all of Red Bull's titles are in this are in these drivers too, right? Between the three of them, they have all of Red Bull's titles, and Alan had nothing to do with Red Bull at all. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he didn't. Other than he worked at Renault.
Oh, there's that. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
eventually. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
true. So he did have, so he is, we should anoint him the GOAT. He is the GOATiest of the
There you
four.
go.
There you
Shortest debate ever.
go. Oh, no. Oh, what are your thoughts?
uh,
So as you were going through, I'm sure you have, I mean, come on, you're a savant of Formula One. So you gotta have
I'm
thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not Rain Man in any way, shape, or form. But um, first of all, I'm definitely not the voice of reason. If you thought that I was going to turn up and say, "Oh, they're all great and they're all very good in their own right," I don't think that at all.
Wow.
There's clear boundaries here. Some are definitely better than others, and some four-time world champions are just created more equal than others. And I think that's what we're going to get into today.
Let's do
Full
it.
on earthquake.
All right.
Um, but uh, but I do agree with you that we are trying to compare drivers from different eras, different rule sets, different philosophies in how Formula One was at the different times that these guys were driving at. I mean, I look back at 2012. I look back at the coverage of it, and it all seems so quaint. It was only a few years ago. I can't believe it. So how to compare drivers from all these different eras? A lot of it isn't going to be based on data. It's just going to be based on vibes. And I guess for this one,
Oh,
that's definitely fine. Um,
I
but we'll
mean,
see whose vibes are stronger than the others. Uh, should we get into it?
yeah, I'm the wives guy around here. You're I don't know when this happened. I'm now the voice of reason and you're not. That's amazing.
Yeah,
2025 is
yeah.
upon
I
us.
I, I think I'm going to struggle.
There
So
you
I
go.
thought I thought the way to play this was that because there's such a big divide between um, Max and Sebastian, and then Alain Prost. I thought that we'd let the two whippersnappers fight it out amongst themselves first, and whoever wins gets to take on the Big Daddy.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let's
All
yeah.
right. So here we go. Round one, Max Verstappen versus Sebastian Vettel. Battle of the four-time world champions. Let's go. Amar, opening statement, please.
All right. Opening statement is this. Max Verstappen is only currently a four-time champion. He's probably not going to stay at four. I think that's fair to say. So this argument might be moot in a little bit. We might be moving Max into a different conversation. But I don't like being prisoner of the moment, Shez. But given what I'm seeing from Max right now, and given what the next couple of years could look like, I have no reason to believe that he will stop. And therefore, my first instinct is to give Max the edge over Sebastian, although Sebastian has had A great career himself, and I will argue that he has been underappreciated by the likes of many of you. And I'm looking at you specifically, Shez, because you have in the past tried to compare him to one Daniel Ricciardo who has had a grand total of titles. So there's that. But I like to start off by giving Max the edge because what he's doing right now is unprecedented by historical standards, not just Sebastian Vettel standards or Prost standards or even Senna standards. Or you pick the driver that you want. But yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. What do you have?
I would say it's not even an edge. I think it's a massive chasm in ability. It's just a completely different level of driver.
Getting ridiculous.
Okay. Let me walk that back a little bit.
Oh
Um,
no.
so okay, Sebastian Vettel, absolutely in his prime, fully deserving of 4 world championships.
But
But,
there's a but
but,
coming.
can we seriously say that even when he was winning those 4 championships, he was the best driver on the grid?
Yes.
He was the best driver on the grid in
Yes.
2012. He was better than
I
Fernando
know.
Alonso.
Yeah, I know that he didn't have the lead until the very end. I know that, but
Was he a better driver than Fernando Alonso and even Mark Webber in
yeah,
2010?
because but Shez, if you're gonna do that argument, then every season can have a best driver that didn't win the championship, right? Then we can't do
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like
But
you
in in
won, but you
in in
won.
certain seasons, the best driver did not win the championship.
Oh
That's
no.
why there's a difference between the best driver of all time and the most successful driver of all time. Those are two different arguments. And
Okay.
you can't, it's not, you're not going to tell me that Ayrton Senna is not better than Sebastian Vettel because he has 3 titles to Sebastian Vettel's 4, unless that is
This
what you're going to tell me.
Yeah, I am going to tell you that because the issue with
Wow.
and what you did here is very sneaky, my friend. Like now you have gone. First of all, you've gone total vibes on me in 2025. Look at you, man. Look at you. You did the whole Senna thing because you know what's going to happen. The second we bring up Senna, all rhyme or reason, all everything goes out there. And
Okay, let's
there's
pick another one. Jim Clark. Do you think that Sebastian Vettel's better than Jim
yes,
Clark?
100%.
You think he's better than Jim Clark?
100%. And
Okay.
and this is the problem going back to comparing eras, right? So we have to take Sebastian Vettel for where he's at, right? And again, I'm on the record here saying that what Max is doing is unprecedented because his resume, as we have discussed, is we've argued whether the 2024 championship or the 21 championship was the better one. And you could argue that both of them put together probably in the top 10 of championships ever won ever. Not a debate for another day, but the reality is, look, when Seth came on the scene to rattle off 4 championships, Shez, you're not going to all win all of them in a dominant fashion. Every season is different. There are a lot of things happening behind the scenes. Red Bull had their own struggles. Everything was there. But what I love about Sebastian Vettel, and this is why I think he doesn't get a lot of respect, is people really hated him at the height of, I want to say 2011, 2012 for sure,
I didn't hate him.
because a lot of people didn't like the idea of him disobeying team orders, although we now tell Lando Norris that he needs to be more aggressive and not worry about listening to that and all of that, right? But he did it at a time where when he had the quickest car, he maximized his chances. And that's
Ammar,
all that you need.
I
That's
so
all you
I
need.
don't I don't have a problem with that. I think when he had the car that suited what he could,
Sure.
that suited his abilities, I don't think there has been a better meld of driver and machine as there has been in say 2013 between Sebastian Vettel and that
Are you
Red Bull.
sure?
Although I think Max is actually doing even better than that
That's
now.
exactly the point. Yeah.
But which is why Max easily comes out on top of this. But the fact is that even when Max has not been in a championship winning car, or he's been in a battle for the championship in a car that maybe isn't as dominantly ahead of everybody else, he maximizes his opportunities,
But
no
that's
pun
what Seb
intended.
did in 2012 too. It's just the other way around.
He no. Okay.
I mean,
The
that's
fact is with Sebastian though, there is a coda to his championship success, isn't there? He went from Red Bull to Ferrari via an interim season in 2014 where he was not very good. And that there is a common recurring theme with Sebastian Vettel that every time he is teamed up with a driver who is younger, up and coming, he just falls away. It happened with him in 2014 against Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, he took care of Mark
Shez.
Webber, not in 2010, but he took care of Mark Webber. As soon as Daniel Ricciardo turns up, suddenly he's nowhere to be seen.
Okay.
He does the same thing at
Well,
Ferrari against Kimi Raikkonen, your favorite. He's very, very good. But as soon as Charles Leclerc turns up in 2019, bam, gone and runs away
okay.
again.
Okay. But here's what I would ask you to put a little bit reason, even though you're all vibes for me in 2025. What we're doing right now is comparing the four-time champs at the end of their fourth championship, not
No, no,
what
we're
happens
not. No,
beyond.
no, that's not what we're
Here's
doing.
so then
That's
this is
not that's
unfair.
that no,
Can I
no,
tell
that's
you?
not what we're doing.
Hang on, hang on, hang on.
We are talking about the drivers in their entirety. So
But
not just their
Max
because the problem is,
Max's
right?
career is not over, Shez. So you can't.
Yeah,
We don't know
but
what the
he
next
does have a
2 years.
career beforehand though, doesn't he? He does have a career
Oh,
before he
Shez
jumped
had
into
this.
a
Seb had the
before
same
he
thing
jumped
too.
into he had 2 seasons. Yeah.
But
And
I mean,
I'll include them.
but what I'm trying to say is you have to compare Sebastian Vettel at the end of 2012 because we're comparing Max at the end of 2024. Max's career is not over.
Oh my God.
He could
We're not
have more
gonna
championships. He could have more, but it's not. But the
this
reason
isn't
I'm
gonna
telling you that you
yeah.
brought up the transition period and the Ferrari years, and what I'm saying is Max could go to Mercedes and he could struggle there. It could be any of those things.
But those
Bring
are
those.
ifs and Ammar, those are ifs and buts. But the thing is, with Sebastian Vettel, those things actually happened.
Correct.
With Max Verstappen, you
Okay.
have a pre-championship era Max Verstappen. What he did in the Toro Rosso in 2015,
What did
what he did in the
Sebastian do?
Red
It's
Bull from
just
2016
okay.
onwards.
I'm okay with you bringing up the pre-Red Bull era, right? For both drivers. What I'm saying is you cannot bring up the post-Red Bull
Of
era
course, I can.
because one of okay, but that is unfair, right? That's the
Why?
point.
Why is that unfair?
Because Max's career is not over yet,
But
and he could struggle.
Max has had a career up until this
Yes,
point.
I understand that. So what I'm trying to say is very simple. 2024, Max has won his fourth championship. That is why we're entering him in this conversation, right? Or this debate,
Yes.
correct? So let's take Sebastian Vettel, put a line at the end of 2012, which is when he won his
Why
fourth.
20? Okay, first of all, why
Because it's not
2012?
apples and apples otherwise.
Okay,
You're looking at
he won his final championship in
sorry.
2013.
All right, and that aside, let's fine. I'll give you the fact that you are comparing Seb's entire career versus Max up until this point. So let's go back to the pre-Red Bull time too, right? You're contending that Max has had a better pre-Red Bull career than Sebastian has. Although I would say they're very
No,
identical.
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is Max's career to date is better than Sebastian Vettel's entire career.
Okay.
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Yes, you can say that. All I'm saying is it's incomplete right now because Max's career is not over. So you're comparing one driver's career while he's
Yeah. So
still
if we
driving and the other one whose career is over. So
Yeah,
maybe
so we can
and
rerun this debate
we
in
can
10
read on
years'
this.
time,
Yeah,
20 years'
yeah,
time when Max
yeah,
Verstappen has retired.
yeah.
But right now, I've got the evidence of what Max has done
Well, uh,
pre-Red Bull and during his Red Bull years, and I've got Sebastian Vettel. He
so
was essentially in a Red
so
Bull or Red Bull alike from the word go,
yeah,
right? So I've got Red Bull, and then I've got his post Red Bull career as well, which is all part of what makes
yeah,
up Sebastian Vettel as a driver. What I will say is that Sebastian Vettel, when he went to Ferrari, that's probably the bit that's slightly underrated in that he was quicker than I think we give him credit for. He was able to adapt to the turbo hybrid era cars much better once he got into a Ferrari and was able to start dictating development in his direction a bit more. I'll give you that. But even if you take that caveat into account, I still don't think that Sebastian Vettel as a driver as a whole
yeah.
had the prerequisites anywhere near what Max Verstappen has. Like Max wouldn't have given up the 2018 title in the same way that Sebastian Vettel did.
I think the fairest argument for Max, and I 100% agree with you. And by the way, we don't even need to compare what happened to Seb after his Red Bull years. I think that if you just took the four championships and compared them head to head, I think Max has has a much more impressive four consecutive title run, right? When both of them had four consecutives too, right? So you just pick the 2024 season and the 2021 season, and you can argue in 2021 he was neck and neck going into that very last round, and we don't want to regurgitate what happened there, but he won it at the height of competition, which I don't think Sebastian Vettel had in any way. Yes, he did have competition; he had to sort of come from behind, but it wasn't neck and neck, mano a mano, in the way that Max and Lewis went at. And then if you look at 2024, to me, it's just 2012 in reverse, right? It's just the other
Well,
way around, and
well, yeah. I
that it's
mean,
more or less. I mean, no two championships are going to be equal in that sense, but I think it's within the margins to say, look, Max was smart about winning the championship. He was more calculated. He didn't need to be aggressive at times when he did, and when he was aggressive, even when he got penalized, he was very smart about that, right? I don't think we really quite saw Seb do any of those things, and I just having watched all four of Sebastian's titles, I think that it's more of a case that he had a great car and he maximized the window, and that there was the competition was not as fierce as Max's had. That's just it. It was fierce in 2012, but really not quite to this level. Just not
yeah,
quite to this. I mean,
yeah. I
McLaren
think
had the quickest car this year, just on average, right? Like, I mean, and I know there are
they
other ways to
didn't.
do. Well,
They
okay,
didn't.
all right, fine. All right, we're gonna do that too. But they at
Well,
least for the second half.
I can't argue with numbers, man. Like numbers tell their own
Well, the reason
story, unfortunately.
The reason it's negated a little bit is by what Max did, not necessarily what Red Bull did. My point is that if Lando would have driven faster, then McLaren could have been outright the best car. But so again, we don't have to get into that. We'll leave it for another day. But I think that just the merit, the quality of the championship win, if that's what we're doing now, is that Max has both of them. He just has. He's just been dominant in a way that's transcended. We talk about putting Max on the Mount Rushmore, right, and the top five drivers. We cannot think of seven
So
the same way.
why are we not putting Sebastian in the Mount
So
Rushmore?
I
Why
think
and not
here's
and
why.
by us I mean you because you've now gone on record as
Well,
saying that
yeah,
Sebastian Vettel is better than Ayrton Senna.
I did not
You
say
did say
that.
that. You did say that.
I said he is better than Jim Clark. We can rewind the tape and do that.
And Ayrton Senna.
I did not
I
say
said
that.
by
No,
your logic,
I didn't
Sebastian
say that.
Vettel is better than Ayrton Senna, and you
No,
said
I didn't
yes.
say that, and here's why. And this is why I'll take the Senna and Max argument together, right? The reason that both Max and Senna get put in the top five, Mount Rushmore, is it's not just about getting the championships. It's about
Oh,
how you.
finally,
That's what I said.
finally, we
I
have
didn't
a
disagree.
revelation.
But I didn't disagree. And by that measure, I put
You
Kimi
did.
Raikkonen in the top 10 drivers of all time, too. So there's that. And he only has one, right? So we can do that.
It's
And
your opinion.
you
Yeah.
praise Alonso for his two titles and having done nothing since then. This is the thing.
I do. I do.
The reason I put Max in there is just the style of it. What Max has done now is he has set the tone for Formula One drivers and the way to attack championships. I mean, you have the likes of Lando Norris going up against him and looking really bad, where Lando Norris is a really good driver in his own right. And so there's that. I mean, Leclerc has come out and talked about pushing the limits of the rules to battle Max. I mean, these are the kind of things that transcendent drivers do. That's what Senna did too. That's why we have damn near 15 Senna documentaries today. There's not one of anyone else anywhere else, right? There's a handful here, but you know what I mean. So
So
there's that. So it's
that's
the
that
style
for
points
me.
too. Yes.
That for me is also the crux of it. Is it's
Yeah.
not like they both have four championships at the moment. Yes, I think Max is more than likely to win more championships. It'll be interesting to see how 2025 pans out, but I'd still place him favorite for the drivers this
Sure.
year.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that they're it's not even close. If Max had three championships and Sebastian Vettel had four, I would still tell you that Max Verstappen is a better driver than Sebastian Vettel. And my exhibit A for that is actually 2018. Like throughout 2010 to 2013, Sebastian Vettel had a car that was theoretically at least dominant. It was miles better than everybody else's.
Yeah.
That team brought back exhaust blown diffusers that hadn't been used since 1992 and made them the technology that everybody needed to have. Then they moved on to coanders. Like it was the car. He had that hardware available to him. And yes, it wasn't always reliable, but he had he had more chances to get results than any other driver, whereas everybody else was constantly fighting a rearguard action, waiting for him and his Red Bull to just come through. And
Yeah.
yes, he did have a
Oh,
connection with that car. But as soon as he left Red Bull, well, not even before he left Red Bull, as soon as the concept changed, he suddenly didn't have the same advantage and he just couldn't leverage his own abilities to do the business. That's why he got beaten in 2014 and had to go to Ferrari to see out the rest of his competitive career, essentially. And 2018 for me is a case in point. And I have got two little graphs because, as always, a graph
what happened to
is
vibes?
a graph is worth 1,000 words or whatever. To 2018, right? Check this out. So this is a graph looking at uh, Ferrari as a team versus Sebastian Vettel as a driver. And in red, I've got where the Ferrari that year ranked, where the Ferrari was in relation to all of the other cars on the grid that year, right? So the higher up this graph you are, the better. In the blue, I've got Vettel. So you can see here that Sebastian's finishing position in races relative to how fast his car was always below. Like he every now and again managed to reach the level of the car, but in reality, a lot of the time he was below that level. He did well in Silverstone and he did well in Mexico when the car overall the performance had started to fall away. But in terms of what he was getting out of the available performance of the car, he was not translating car performance into championship points and results. The big dip in Germany is where he drove off into the gravel, so that's a DNF. Okay. Compare that to Max Verstappen, right? This is Max Verstappen in 2021. And again, I've got in dark blue, I've got the Red Bull and where it ranked in terms of its relative performance to its rivals. And then in orange, I've got where Max was. The most obvious thing here is that there's three big DNFs. One's in Baku where his tyre blew up. One's at the British Grand Prix. I'm not going to go into that. And one in Monza. I'm not going to go into that either. But if you look away from that, just look how close his orange line tracks to the performance of the car. He is maximizing, again, no pun intended, everything that that car can give. And Sebastian Vettel was not
Yeah.
able to do that. And I would argue that had the other constructors been closer to the Red Bull in their dominant era, we would have seen a different champion in each of those seasons, other than 11 and 13. I think 10 and 12, he was rescued by his machinery. And that for me, that level of wastefulness when the chips are down, when he actually has a proper competitor in another car, which he did in Lewis Hamilton in 2018, he folds. And that's just something you don't see from Max. He maximizes everything every time he gets in that car. You know that when he gets out at the end of a race, there is no more that that car could have possibly given. And that trace in 2021, I think, proves that. So for me, it's not. We're having this competition, we're having this discussion because they both ostensibly have four championships, but there's a gulf in performance.
Yep. I mean, what do we always say, right? Not all champions and championships are made equal. So I appreciate that illustration, but that's exactly why you even if you just go off the vibes, right? What Max is doing again, and think about the competition. You just sort of alluded to it, right? When Max has had competition, you have seen him raise his game. You can argue whether he's over the line aggressive, whatever. We can do that. But even when he's been penalized, I would argue that it's been smart penalties because he has figured out a way to hurt his competitor far more than hurting himself, right? And that's the mark of a true champion is being able to think outside of those white lines too. And how many times have we seen examples of Max calling out penalties on other drivers when he has his own race to man? So I think it's stuff like that. And I think I agree with you. I mean, the only thing I would add to sort of be fair to Vettel is again, you get what you get and you don't complain about it, right? That's just how it is. Every era is different. Competition is different. To your point, the fact that other constructors couldn't be better than Red Bull or just be within a decent range of being able to be competitive, that's not his fault, right? I mean, you
Yeah, but I
can't
would
do
argue
anything
that
about
Vettel
that.
got
So
found out as soon as he
yeah,
wasn't in a Red Bull. He
I
wasn't.
mean,
He just wasn't that driver. And
yeah,
you could argue that the motivation went or something. But when he was at Ferrari, especially in 2017 and 2018, there's no argument that says that his motivation was gone. He was fired up and ready to go. He was a performer. He was performing well in those
yeah.
seasons. But that, for me,
Well,
is when peak Vettel wasn't enough.
yeah,
And that's why he doesn't win this round for me. So that takes us on to round two.
fantastic.
Max Verstappen versus Alain Prost.
Ooh,
I think I
spicy.
know. I think I know which way you're going to go,
Huh?
but I'm going to let you have first dibs anyway.
Well,
Hit me.
I'm gonna stick with the guy that is being transcendent dominant, and I don't think it's even close. I know you're gonna argue a lot about Prost because he's your guy. Uh, but let me just say, having picked Max, I do want to give credit to Prost because I think he too is a little bit underappreciated. I think we forget that he's won titles with multiple constructors, not just one, and I think there's something to be said about that. Whereas the two drivers we were talking about before have won with Red Bull machinery during dominant runs, right? That Red Bull has had, not all the time, but at least most of the time. Prost didn't quite have that. And I know you're going to give us the history lesson on how Prost won, but for me, the most impressive thing that Prost did is not is to come back and win with Williams when he did. That last championship for me is it's probably more remarkable than anything else. But I'll sort of cede the floor to you. You made a weird face there. What did I say there? That got you going.
As in, I'm confused. So Alain Prost is your winner, then, is he?
No,
Because
no,
I
it's
agree.
Max.
Done.
It's Max. No, no, it's Max.
It's
But you
Max.
can.
Okay, so why is it Max?
I mean, we just described the reasons already. I mean, you go
Okay,
ahead
but
and tell me
why
why.
Max over Alain Prost? Because I think Max taking on Sebastian Vettel was a non-event. We discussed it vigorously, I thought there, but probably that was an easy conversation to have. Why is Max Verstappen better than four-time world champion Alain Prost?
You tell me that. You tell me why. I
Well,
already told
but
you.
no, no, but I'm not going to argue that though,
Well,
because I'm going to come out. I've got a different
look,
argument.
I don't. You're going to give us the facts, so let me just give you the vibes. I don't think of Prost as a dominant driver. I think of him as a very sort of smart, calculated driver. I also see him play outside of the lines in a way that's even more cheekier. Whereas Max races aggressively and hard. He's never played the referees or the stewards or whatever they were back then. I mean, the Monaco race where Senna would have won comes to mind where he conveniently waved his arms. I cannot forget the
That
visual of
lost him a
that.
fifth. That lost Alain Prost a
Whatever,
fifth world
but
championship for
that was
stepping in.
event. You're right, and eventually it did, and maybe that is karma, right? So I can't complain about that. But that to me is when you start as a driver, when you get into the influencing of things outside, that to me is a little it's a little bit untasteful, right? Or distasteful rather is the right word. That's the reason. It's one thing for you to drive aggressively and I don't mind the Japanese Grand Prix where he sort of ran Senna off, although many people do. I get it. That's fine. To me, that's still driver to driver,
Sorry,
but
sorry. Alain Prost ran Senna off the road at the Japanese Grand
that's
Prix.
my version of it.
Which Grand Prix?
Was it which one was it at the R130? Like what was the famous one? I can't remember the year. You can tell me
You're
that.
talking about 89.
89, that's right.
As in, okay, fair enough. Yep.
But
Okay,
no, no.
cool.
But my point to you in general is that I don't think of Prost. I mean, I didn't think he was a dominant driver in his era. I thought that Senna was a more dominant driver. And to your earlier point, he would have had more titles had it not been. I mean, look, I don't like to do ifs and buts. I mean, but good God, we lost that life too. So who knows? We have to be able to kind of say that an if matters in this case more than anywhere else. It's not a question of a team going away or an engine going kaput or anything like that. This is had Senna lived longer, I believe that he would have won far more championships. And I think of him as the more dominant driver. Prost, very calculated, very sort of steady Eddie, being able to kind of manage races probably better than any driver. But as far as when I think of Formula One and speed, those two things are not synonymous for me with Prost, but they are with Max. quite simply. I mean, he is just. Did you see Brazil 2024? I saw what Max did. Like it's crazy. That kind of stuff. I don't remember Prost doing at all. But you're gonna tell me why I'm an idiot for saying that. So
No, no, not an idiot. I think this is a really interesting matchup. Because it like like I've said before, I think there's two archetypes in Formula One, and they fall very neatly into the Prost archetype and the Senna archetype. Um, and that's why this is an interesting debate to have. I don't think it's clear cut in terms of who absolutely is the best driver. You do have to make a few caveats in terms of era and the era that Prost was driving in, the requirements of a driver, what was needed to win races and championships at that time. And you can't ignore the fact that there was a higher attrition rate in each race at that time. He drove through the entirety of the turbo era, where engines were exploding on a regular basis, and tires were basically made of chewing gum. So they're yes, races were driven differently. But I would say that both of these drivers maximized um, their chances of good results by driving in exactly the way that that era required them to drive, and that's how they are as successful as they are. It's just that the requirements of right now are for a Senna-like driver, and Max embodies that absolutely. But if you're talking about which is better, it comes down to which you think on a philosophical base level, what you think makes a better driver, right?
yeah,
And I love Max Verstappen, right? I think his driving is incredible, right? As of January the 5th, 2025, he is pound for pound the best driver in Formula One right now, and has been for the past 3 or 4
yeah,
seasons.
yeah.
There's there-
Can't
there's
debate. That's not
there's just
debatable.
no debate about
Right.
that, and he is driving in an era where there are giants. Fernando Alonso is still driving. Lewis Hamilton is still driving. Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Lando Norris. You list all the names. The strength and depth in the Formula One field right now is incredible. But Prost had the same. To say that he's not a dominant driver misses the point about Alain Prost. The calculating, using every tool at his disposal driver is exactly what was needed anywhere from 1980 to 1993 when he finally retired. And if you look at the cars that he was in, the teams that he was in, the drivers that he was up against as his teammates, yeah, you talk about ifs and buts, but for a dodgy little piece of equipment in the engine, he would have had the title in 83. In 84,
Agreed.
if he had in fact decided to to ask for the race to continue in Monaco, he would have won that championship. You know, it's he's the kind of driver that if you're going to use ifs and buts, he could seriously be considered for 8 or 9 championships. It's he's that good. And in terms of who he had to beat to do that, right? It's not like he was driving against Sergio Perez every weekend,
Oh, he
right?
doesn't check with swipe now.
Sorry, mate. He lost out in 1984 by half a point to who? Do you know who?
No. Tell me.
Nicky freaking
Louder.
Lauda.
So,
Nicky Lauda, right? Half a point to Nicky
yeah, but
Lauda. And then went off and absolutely demolished him in 85. Like, Nicky was basically on the point of retirement at the end of that season. There was nothing more to give. 84, 86,
six. Yeah.
86. Yeah. So he wins the title there. The Williamses were the dominant cars that season. So he won a championship, Kimi Raikkonen style, in a car that was not the best that season. Who was his championship? Who was his teammate that season? Do you know?
Senna.
Keke Rosberg, 1982 world
Oh,
champion.
that's right. 80.
So that's two world champions he's beaten in the same car. 88, 89. Who did he have in the car next to him?
Senna.
Senna, yeah. And the record books will tell you that Alain Prost won one of those titles in 1989. So that's I'm just going to check this off now. That's Niki Lauda, Keke Rosberg, Ayrton freaking Senna in the
Okay.
same car.
All
Yeah.
right.
And if you're going to use if we're going to do ifs and buts, if
Okay.
there wasn't the ridiculous dropped scores rule that I mean, who the hell thought
All
that
right.
that was a good idea? Well, it wasn't. I understand why it was there, but if that hadn't been in place, he would have won at 88 as well. And
Yes.
then he comes back out of retirement in 1993
I
to win
did.
another
Right.
championship with who was his teammate in 1993?
I have no idea. You're gonna tell me now.
Damon Hill, who
All right.
went on to win the 1996 World Championship.
Okay.
So
All right.
every one of his
Okay.
titles
Okay.
against a driver that has won previous championships. This is not a guy to be messed with. So yes, he won at the slowest possible rate.
Pace.
That was his mantra. But in terms of what you
Okay.
needed to do,
Yeah.
that's what he did.
All right, fine. That's fine. If you meet all the check boxes for a championship, I'm down with it. I'm not going to take anything away from you. I argued this year in 24 that if Lando Norris won, I would give him the same amount of praise that I would give any one-time world champion. Right? That's fine. I love that you brought up all of these guys, right? And but you also alluded to the fact that the current Formula One field is both deep and what did you say? And has its breadth of champions. So I would just tell you that I see all of the Niki Laudas, I see Senna, I see Damon Hill, and I raise you one, your guy, Lewis Hamilton in 2021. Look at how he went toe to toe with Lewis Hamilton, and he won. Whatever the case might be, it was going into that
Alain
last
Prost
race.
went toe to toe with Ayrton Senna
I know.
twice,
And now, so let's put you a little
three
bit on the
times, in
spot. Then,
fact,
are you
three
saying that
times.
Senna is better than Lewis Hamilton? Then
No.
okay, so that there you go. So
What
Max won against
I don't understand
Max
the
won
where you're going.
against a seven-time, arguably the best, if not one of the two best drivers of all time. That's it. That's all I need to. You can line up all the other champions, unless you're going to tell me that Lewis Hamilton, at the height of his powers, by the way, that was the
Mm.
yes, maybe it was a down year for Mercedes relative to the
Yeah.
other dominant year,
Okay.
but they were neck and neck. But if we're down,
this is a
but
different argument.
you just talked about
It is
competition, so I'm just trying to tell you that you quizzed me all the way through all of that, and I just tell you that you missed out the fact that Max won against a seven-time champion, his
yeah.
first title, by the way.
Lewis for me isn't at that level because he's won 7 world championships. I've already told you this. The number of championships means very little to me
You
in
just said
terms
he's
of
better than
how I
Senna.
assess
Is
a
he better
driver.
than Lauda? Is Lewis better than Niki Lauda?
Mate, why are
Is
we
Lewis
doing
better than
this?
Senna? But I'm just
Why are we doing this?
I'm
Do
rebutting
you think that
your
okay, do you think that if we took 10 Formula One bods, right? 10 random Formula One experts, that all of
Shez.
them would say that Lewis Hamilton is better than Ayrton Senna?
Shez.
That for me is a
I
personal
didn't
that's a
but
personal
Shez,
opinion as opposed
Shez,
to a definite I think that Lewis is
I agree.
quantifiably better than Ayrton Senna.
I 100% agree with you, but you were the one who brought up the competition that Alan Prost had. So in that regard, I'm
Yeah,
just bringing
Max.
up the competition that
Max.
Max has
Yes.
had.
So Max
That's
has
all.
beaten. Yeah. I'm talking about in the same car, Ammar.
Okay, it's not. You talked about winning the championship. Sometimes it can be in the same car. Sometimes it may not be in the same car. Winning a champ. Look, and you just said that different eras have different requirements. Those eras, there used to be two cars that from the same team that could win. We know that the Formula One of today is not sort of meant for that. It is sort of meant to support one driver at a certain point in time, and that's how it's supposed to be. That's how this is.
I would
So,
argue
are
against
we
that as
talking about
well.
beating teammates or are we talking about winning championships against a championship rival? That's the question. So, if you want to
Well,
talk about teammates,
He won those championships against rivals within and without his team. So
okay,
he has beaten
but
Senna
so
to a
that's
championship in the
sure.
same team.
It's not
He has
Max's
beaten.
fault that he had
Wait.
Checo there. So,
He's beaten
I
Nigel Mansell, and Nelson Piquet
agree. I am
while he
not
had a
disagreeing.
champion in his car
I am not, but I
in
didn't
his own
disagree
garage.
with you. I
So like the level of competition that Alain Prost was up against is
Are you saying it's better than what Max has been up against?
yeah, I would
Okay.
say pound for pound, era for era. Yeah, I think Alain Prost had a harder time of it
So
with the guy in the car opposite him.
yeah, but look at what Max did to his teammates, including Checo Perez, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly. That see, that is also
Alex Albon
okay.
versus
Wait,
Nicky
wait, no, no, no,
Lauda.
no, 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 no.
Just listen to what you've
No,
just
no, no.
said there,
Let me
yeah?
finish. So you can listen. Let me finish what I was saying. Okay. I'm talking about what Max has done to these drivers, right? You cannot, your argument is put another champion next to Max and then let's see how that happens. That's not up to Max to happen. And like I said, I'm not taking anything away from Prost for that. He has had world championship caliber type teammates or
Hmm.
rivals, and I'm putting them together. To me, and this is just, let's just get that on the table. Your championship rival can be in a car that is just the exact same as yours or not, or a better or a worse. That's just how life works. Max has beaten whoever he has competed with. That's my point to you, including a seven-time champ. That's all I'm saying. It's not Max's
Yeah,
fault that Lewis Hamilton was not.
So Alain has beaten arguably the greatest driver of all time. Not in my opinion, but
Yeah, you're
in
talking
the
about
F1
Schumacher.
but in the F1 fraternity's opinion, he has beaten the greatest driver that's ever lived.
Okay,
So
but we are not talking about the fact that they
and
have not
if we're
beaten.
talking about demolition jobs, you're talking about Max demolishing Alex Albon. Yeah, Alain Prost absolutely
Even Checo Perez couldn't survive after getting a contract
yeah,
renewal two
correct.
races into the season.
Correct. But Alain Prost absolutely obliterated Niki Lauda in 1985, absolutely
You
obliterated
just said he was
Keke
about to
Rosberg,
retire. But those,
completely obliterated Keke Rosberg in 86 to the point that Keke Rosberg said, I have to be the number two. There is no way I can compete against that guy. He also
okay,
demolished Nigel Mansell in
yeah.
1990.
I
So
didn't say he didn't do any of that.
But if we're comparing the two drivers, if you're telling me that you're using Max demolished certain drivers as a barometer of how
Look,
much better he
look,
is than Alain Prost, then
as a
I'm going to use
competitor,
the same argument back to you to say that Alain Prost demolished championship winning drivers. He demolished Keke
what
Rosberg,
I
Niki
mean,
Lauda, and Nigel Mansell in the same car. I'm sorry, but that
okay.
those are two different levels of
No, it
competition in
isn't.
the
It
same car.
isn't. It's a it's a different lens of looking at it. My point to you is you don't get to choose who your competitor is going to be.
Yeah,
You don't
I
get to
agree.
choose who your other driver is. So it is
But in
what it is.
retrospect, you do.
And what I mean, it's not Max's fault that they haven't put Lewis Hamilton in the other Red Bull or pick your whoever you want to put Fernando Alonso in another Red Bull. That's not up to him. So the thing is, this is a slightly unfair comparison. This is why I told you at the beginning that it is a little bit premature to compare Max's career, although we're doing it because it's not over yet. So let's see what happens moving forward, right? But if,
That is
to
the
the
biggest
extent,
sit on the fence.
let me finish. To the extent that we are in this, I 100% agree with you. Prost demolished all of his competitors in his own sort of slow bleed style of racing. That's fine. I'm not saying that Prost doesn't even deserve to be in any kind of argument. Let's go back to what you were pointing a finger at me for. The reason I picked Max and the reason I put Max in the top five of
Yes.
all time is because of the way he has dominated this era in a way that also appeases to, or not appeases, that fulfills the appetite of racing in general as a sport. And that to me has some points in there because everything you set up until this point, we acknowledge that it's neck and neck, right? The reason I give Max the edge is because he is transcending the sport in a way that Prost didn't. He is transcending the sport in a way that Senna did with fewer titles. Why? Why is it that that's happening? Because there is something beautiful about the way he's driving. I mean, how many times have we come on here and said, what a magnificent drive. And agreed, there was no coverage of Formula One in quite the same way that in Prost's age as it is now. So that's being slightly unfair. And who knows what that would have looked like. I mean, look, if we're going to do that, then him calling off the Monaco race would have looked. Can you imagine how we would be killing him right now? We'd be completely destroying him for that. Yes, he didn't win a championship because of calling off that Monaco race, but we didn't know it in that moment, right? And he was trying to preserve his race win at that time. So let's just be fair for the sake of that. My only contention to you, and I 100% agree with you, it is neck and neck. But what Max is doing is having I would argue, a Lewis Hamilton style impact of really pushing the sport into another stratosphere with the way he drives, with his intelligence. And he drives fast. That cannot be said about Prost. If you want to
It
say yes,
can.
he won championships,
Oh, it can.
very
No, no, it
calculated
can.
man.
Oh,
Okay,
oh, it
but at
can.
you just said it's the slowest speed, right?
No, no,
That's not the
yeah,
sport. The sport
the
is not
slowest possible, winning at the slowest
correct.
possible
Correct.
pace doesn't mean that you're driving slowly.
Okay,
Again,
but that's not what I want to watch. Like
just
that's
listen to the quotes of his teammates who said that we cannot keep up with this guy.
okay, fine, fair
The
enough.
only one that
And I
could was
didn't.
Senna. So it took
Yes.
Senna to beat him
Yes, exactly. And he
over
did
one
get
lap.
beat. So
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 it's not
there's
that
that.
he's slow. I just want I'm not saying
It's slower.
I'm not disagreeing with you,
Yeah.
but I am going to pick on that bone of contention that Prost was somehow slow. He was not slow in it's just relative to Ayrton freaking Senna, who F1 in what was it 2015 2016 objectively said was the quickest driver of all time. Yes, he was not as quick as him. Sure.
So where do we go from here now?
I'm going to back down because look,
No,
ultimately,
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
Wait, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. No, no, you're backing down. My goodness.
yeah.
Let me just
Because I've said all this stuff because look, like I said, there's two major philosophies in Formula One, right? There is the Prost, there is that Prost mentality, and there is that Senna mentality, and Max definitely falls down on the Senna mentality. Do I have some issues with the way that Max goes racing sometimes? Yes, I don't love it. It's just not my way of wheel to wheel racing. I like seeing corner after corner being battled out. I don't like the way he does that, but he melds what is required by the rules with what he can get away with better than anybody I've ever seen. And if you can think of anyone more Prost-like in that regard, I cannot. And that's the thing. He's taken the thing that Prost had, that how can I bend my performances or how can I bend the rules to favor my performances? He's taken that in his wheel to wheel racing and melded that with a Senna-like pace,
yeah.
right? And that for me is why Max has to come out on top of this. And I have to say I can't believe I'm saying that because for the longest time, Alain Prost was my poster boy for how to win a world championship.
Goodness.
But Max beats that. Max beats that because as you say, there is an intelligence to the way that he goes racing, not the way he goes driving. And those two things are different. Driving is all about how you get pace out of the car. And in that regard, Max has honed this style to a point where he is unassailable. But what sets him apart, what the thing that makes him controversial is also the thing that right now makes him great. The way that he is able to bend the rules of racing to allow him to race the way that he wants to race makes him the best four-time only world champion, in my opinion. And
What a great start to
if
2025.
I am listening to this correctly, I believe we have agreement. For
Oh
the
goodness.
first time ever in entire GP history, there it is. Agreement from both of us. And the ranking is as follows. In number 3, we have Sebastian Vettel. Then there's a big gap. Alain Prost, number 2. Max Verstappen is your greatest four-time only world champion. And there you go. Put that on your fire and burn it. As usual, if you like what we're doing here, please like, please subscribe. We are tantalizingly close to 930 subscribers. We would
Oof.
love to have your 2 cents in there right now. Please leave a comment. We'll read every single one and we'll reply to as many as we possibly can. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Later.